The intersection of sexual assault and interpersonal violence is layered and complex. Shame, confusion, and fear can be overwhelming for most survivors of intimate partner sexual assault. These feelings can impact a survivor's ability to disclose the existence or extent of sexual violence. Their decision to file a police report will involve a complex calculus related to shame, safety for themselves and their loved ones, and what the justice system can do to help them. This video provides practitioners in the justice system with the information and skills needed to assess survivors' fears and concerns and to improve survivor safety and offender accountability.
We may get called to a scene on an intimate partner violence case because of the physical assault that's going on. But when you're there and you do a thorough investigation and you ask a lot of the other questions that need to be asked in an intimate partner violence case, you will find quite often that there's sexual violence that's occurred as well. And if that sexual violence has occurred, you need to treat it with the same passion and veracity as you would any other evidence in the case.
When I am meeting with victims 1 or 2 times trying to prepare the case, and I'm asking for that history of the relationship evidence, that I'm going to try to file a motion to get in to show that this was not an isolated incident of domestic violence, but a pattern in her life. And it's during those times that if a prosecutor is sensitive but doesn't ignore the question, asks if there's ever been instances of sexual violence, that you might start to hear that from the victim. I think it's the last thing they're willing to admit.
Take the time to thoroughly investigate them, making sure you do a good history of what that relationship has been over a period of time. Because you might often find that that one case of sexual assault that you're dealing with is one of countless other ones.
And the victim had a hard time recognizing that as a sexual assault because it was normalized in the context of the abusive relationship.
Perpetrators of sexual assault and domestic violence often commit multiple types of violence. The survivor may initially disclose only one. To gather more information about the extent and potential pattern of abuse, ask open-ended questions and give a survivor space to tell their story. Ask clarifying questions and explain why you're asking them. Use behaviorally based questions to determine if they've experienced other forms of violence. Be prepared that a survivor may have strong feelings of shame, embarrassment, or confusion about their victimization, especially any sexual violence they may have endured. They may also express responsibility for the assault or offer explanations to excuse the perpetrator's actions.
And often if it's a current partner or a former partner, shame is felt by the victim. The victims often feel that it's somehow their responsibility, that they are at fault when it's their own partner. Sometimes the shame or feeling at fault is because the partner themselves have said it's your fault that this is happening to you. You brought it on yourself because of what you wore, or that you've been drinking, or that you've instigated my anger knowingly.
The hardest thing about working a case where someone is assaulted by an intimate partner is the profound sense of betrayal that the victim feels. They still have romantic feelings towards that person. Part of staying is also a calculus about safety.
Something that is a known danger is safer feeling to us than unknowns. So people often return to situations that we perceive as dangerous and that they may even be aware are dangerous, but that feels safer than having to strike out into the unknown.
Don't judge them for it. Don't make them feel bad about it. Just validate, this has to be so hard. I know you're telling me how you feel about them. This has got to be really hard for you.
One of the things that it's important to do with a victim when it involves a current or former partner is to see how they feel safety-wise. See if they feel safe being around the other person, if they feel safe communicating with them in the future. And then we also go forward and just discuss what they would do if that person were to approach them or to try to contact them, and get a game plan set out.
Safety planning is critically important and should be done in partnership with the survivor. Learn about legal options for protective orders and how to refer or assist a survivor in obtaining one. Encourage survivors to strengthen the protective factors in their lives, including connecting to supports in their communities. Be sure to give each survivor the national or local domestic violence or sexual assault hotline number.
Understand what would be satisfactory for the victim or justice for that victim may not end up being having a case go fully all the way into court and then in a conviction. And in no way does that change the believability of this victim or anything else.
So prosecutors need to understand that she might go back to him. And then that's going to be a hard fact that you have to deal with before the jury. You're going to need an expert witness to talk about power and dynamics of domestic violence and explain why folks go back. You're going to need to understand the kind of support that those victims are going to require to stay on board with you. And you also need to understand the kind of pressure they're going to be getting from that partner or former partner to recant, to not come to trial and testify.
Both research and experience show that a survivor may recant, refuse to engage with the criminal justice system, or return to an abusive partner, all for valid reasons and because they are continually assessing safety needs. They may fear the loss of privacy and retaliation by the suspect. Survivors often face further re-victimization throughout the criminal justice process and may have little support and few resources.
She told us that mother stopped coming to the visits, the sister stopped calling, but the suspect was there. He had taken that opportunity to fill that gap. And she said, he is there for me. He is my only support. Oftentimes, the victims are isolated from their natural support system. So it is important that they reestablish those connections with family members, with friends, because that, along the line, will help them.
And it's helpful to remember that people have a lot of different survival strategies. Sometimes people are attached to the person emotionally. Sometimes they have children together, or they are dependent economically on somebody. And it's very complicated then to make a different series of life choices.
So when we have a victim who is getting pressure from family or friends to not move forward with a report or with any kind of process, either administrative or criminally, just reassure them about what happened, validate their feelings, talk through the process with them. It's important to not pressure them, but to make sure they're informed about what their options are, and encourage them to move forward if that's something that they're willing to do.
Sexual assault within the context of interpersonal violence is often hidden, but skillful questioning may reveal acts of sexual violence. Survivors often feel intense shame and may be hesitant to participate in the criminal justice system. In addition, the dynamics of an abusive relationship can become extremely complicated, especially when the survivor still has feelings for the abuser, is economically dependent on the abuser, has limited community connections or support, and is now facing an unknown future. Professionals should consider survivors' fears and concerns, offer meaningful safety solutions, and encourage them to move forward when they are ready. To learn more, collaborate, and support our research, visit our website at sites.utexas.edu/IDVSA.